I'm delighted to welcome Pradip Mistry to the Junior Business Studio. Hiya, Pradip.
Hello, Alec. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, too. I can't believe it must be about a year or thereabouts since we last spoke. And a lot has changed then. And I think our listeners will be delighted to hear some of your insights to what's happening around at the moment. But just take them back a bit so they get a sense of where you've come from in life. We always talk about school and the last years in school. Had you any sort of plan, or were you going to college, or were you going into business, or were you just going to travel the world? What had you got in mind?
School, I remember, was the best time of my life. And I had a lot of enjoyment time there. I had a lot of teachers there, and a lot of learning at that stage, because you're at a stage in your teenage years where you're just moving from young adulthood into an adult, and you still haven't got your feet on the ground yet. So there's a lot of happening. Your body is changing as well. Your mindset is changing. The chemical in your body is changing. A lot of things happening, and a lot of kids are called trouble kids, but that's the time when you're trying to land on your feet, sort of thing. As an adult, you're transiting into an adulthood. For me, school was a great time. I made loads of friends, loads of learning as well, from being sort of quiet place where I didn't like the disruptions of rowdy kids, noisy kids, to realizing that if I wasn't part of that, I was missing out on life. So I in fact took part in it. And a lot of my school friends are still good friends of mine, even in our 50s and touching 60s now. So it was a fantastic time. Going back to aspirations, I think like a lot of kids, for those who fell on the feet at a good time, had a sense of direction. But like most of us, we were totally oblivious to what to expect or what's out there. Whatever was sort of shown to us by our parents and peer groups, we learned from that. My learning came from doing summer jobs, summer holiday work.
All right.
From working in a convalescent home, being a waiter in a restaurant, to really getting my hands dirty, repairing starter motors and dynamos.
Great.
So that gave me a real life work experience. And that's something I've instilled in my children as well, that when they were at school, they went out to work. It gives you different learning, life learning from the school itself, because school can be contextual and academic, but it's a real life experience. And you learn about people, emotions, how the world works. And that was a good starting for me at school. Aspirations wise, I was a little technical minded. In those days, we had very limited computing facilities, but I certainly enjoyed that, and I wanted a career built on that. But as things went on, there weren't many opportunities. So eventually I went into college to study engineering. And that again opened up my technical skills. And they also taught me report writing, communication skills. So it was a wonderful starting point. And immediately after the college, I got thrown into the world of work, and it put me into an engineering company, massive multi-million-pound engineering company. We built power stations globally. So it opened up a world for me to learn, apply my technical skills, limited ones, but to build on it. And that's where I found, I had wonderful mentors. In those days, we had your managers who were very caring and considerate, and they used to help you. It's a bit like an apprenticeship, not a formal one, but an informal.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So that way, actually, I learned a huge amount of skills, technical skills, interpersonal skills, and numeric skills. Numerics are very important in running a business. If you lose sight of the numbers, even no matter how passionate you are about your work that you do, you're not in a business. Otherwise, if you ignore the numbers, it's just a hobby. And the hobby could be a very expensive hobby for you.
It's amazing in a world that we live in today. And speaking of numbers, the number of companies who are valued on stock exchanges based on the amount of money they lose. Things like WeWork and all of these places who seem to be losing a shed load of money based around what looks like a good idea that should be making money.
I think there's a word terminology for that. It's called loss makers. Because there's something else. There's a leader somewhere along, but you need a loss maker to pump up the profit makers. But that's in the bigger scheme of things. If we're talking about SMEs, we're talking about our own business, and we cannot afford to be loss leaders in our business. We have to be making money from the word go. Otherwise, you're not in a business.
And it's amazing, actually, and I think you and I come across them on a regular basis, the number of people in business who don't even have something as simple as a spreadsheet, a cash flow spreadsheet.
It's I think the old traditional way of working from the back of a cigarette packet or a beer mat. and
Mm.
working on that. But I think business has become more complex now. The environment has changed. There's a lot of influences, external, from the governments and regulations, finances, the financial market. And internally, it's your own systems and procedures, which you have a lot of control over. But you have to be able to balance between the external forces and what you are able to manage internally. So
You,
certainly businesses have changed.
No, certainly, and the modeling has changed. You mentioned a thing called mentorship, and a lot of people are probably not overly familiar with the concept of it, but how important it is in life. I know you and I do some of it. You're probably much more experienced than I am in it. And maybe talk to our listeners a bit about mentorship and the importance of it in their business life.
I'd like to clarify something. There is a clear distinction between counseling and therapy. Mentorship is nurturing.
Mm.
It's something that actually helps an individual to be stretched to their full potential. Therapies and counseling has a purpose in life where people are traumatized or where they're stuck from things that have happened in the past. What we're talking about mentoring and coaching is somewhere where somebody is helping you to be your right hand man, basically, a sounding board to sound ideas. Often the case is we have a lot of ideas in our head, but we can't take it out, we can't express it. And a mentor and a coach will actually help you to get those out and facilitate a questioning process, and it will bring out ideas and put it into practice. And it's quite a good process, and I recommend it to everybody. I've certainly had my own mentors and coaches myself, and I see the benefit of it because I would have been stuck and being stagnant, and it's actually helped me grow my business and grow me myself as a personal individual. So certainly, everybody should have one in every shape or form, whoever you can relate with, somebody who's able to stretch you rather than be complacent with you, not being part of your story, but to help you create a new story in your life.
Will come in. And we were just talking about mentorship, and I was saying that the role, particularly for SMEs at the top, is a lonely one, and more particularly for solopreneurs. And you do need a shoulder to cry on. You do need counseling. You do need people to bounce ideas off. So I think it's, as you were just talking about, more important than ever that the role of the mentor there. What do you think yourself?
I've certainly felt that in my business, where I've felt that, sometimes I'm feeling a bit directionless. And often the case is I know there's a lot of things in my head I want to do, a lot of ideas, but often you get stuck because you're so involved in your business that you haven't got a chance to step back and reflect on where you are, how you're performing, and what you could do different or better. And that's where a coach, and it depends on what kind of coach you want. You can have a marketing coach or a business coach, finance coach, but you want a coach that will stretch you and question you, not to undermine your credibility or your ability, because you are an expert in your business. A coach isn't. But a coach will rely on your expertise to be able to uh, shift through the nuggets of what you are made of and bring it to the surface and say, right, this is what you have. What do you want to do with it? And loneliness can be detrimental to your business because it puts a huge amount of pressure on your performance at work and decision making, and it can affect your bottom line. That kind of pressure you don't want, because when you're in a business, you really want to make sure that you're flying in the business, you're enjoying what you're doing, and you're enjoying the success of your business. Not forgetting the rewards you get out of your business as well, because take time and say, look, I deserve this because I've done this well. There will be times, particularly like now, where there's a lot of uncertainty in business. And this is a crucial time in your business to have somebody to talk to and say, what else can you do with what you have? You may have production facilities or buildings or facilities that you've developed. And all of a sudden, because of COVID, you're not able to function in the normal capacity. And a lot of the big companies have actually evolved. They started making things that is different. You find McLaren's are making face masks and what do you call it, the breathing operators.
Yeah.
And all these kind of things. You're evolving with time. So use your technical skills, your abilities for the benefit. And you'll find that when this thing is over, you'll have a new market. Your business will have changed tremendously. And you need somebody to be able to guide you through this, to become resilient and find the opportunities that are available now, rather than the dooms and glooms that we all tend to talk to each other about. That can don't, and that's another thing. Don't talk to somebody who's not optimistic. Otherwise, they'll pull you down like nobody's business. So it's always good to talk to somebody who's actually doing things and they found ways of doing it. And certainly I have loads of ways of going through, leading your business through COVID. There is also ways of looking after yourself. Then unless you as a driver, you don't look after your well-being, you're not going to be only used to your business. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways, a lot of support available.
Yeah, and I think it's very important. I mean, I've looked at this whole COVID thing from my side as well. And really, I've seen it as a great opportunity for most people to get off the treadmill of life. It's once in a generation opportunity to examine what are you doing in life and are you enjoying it? As you said, you in your own career, you found that niche that you love working in. And I think that opportunity is there for so many. If you can just go out and find it, take the opportunity and go and find it for yourself.
I've certainly found that this is a huge opportunity for what I do because I can step up. Before COVID, what I used to do was talk to people who were at a crossroad in their life, asking what else is there in life and in business. Now, what you're finding is a taste of what it would be like when you're not able to function in a normal capacity. You know, your emotions are an upheaval. You know, you're trying to manage the anxiety, the frustration of what you're going through, and that can have a major impact on your business and your well-being, and also relationship. Because if you're locked under your nearest and dearest for 24 hours, you really in life you're married to them for evenings and weekends and summer holidays. For God's sake, not 24 hours a day. That can put a huge amount of pressure on relationship, can put a huge amount of relationship with people that you work in business, including your employee and staff you have, you know, because now they will be remote. You can't go and tick them off when we used to be able to. So how do you manage them? You still want them to function. They're going through their own emotional ups and downs. And so you need to be resilient to be able to help them to function and perform at their best and be supportive when they need you. And likewise, you need somebody as well. And certainly a coach or a mentor is somebody you can rely on to, you know, to open your mind up, to open your heart up, to find solutions to what you're going through now. So it's addressing the hopelessness and helplessness to find solutions. And you say, well, actually, life's not all that bad. We just carry on, but in a different way.
I find it quite interesting, and I've been talking to a number of people in business, and I work in similar areas to yourself. There are certainly companies out there that make money, as I say, despite themselves. And yet now when something like COVID comes along, you say to them, have you looked at your 3-month cash flow going forward? And they go, cash flow? No, I don't have such a thing, you know. And so therefore the reality of running a business comes to them in a different way. They're pushed into it.
It is. I've come from a financial reporting background. So, you know, my early days was exposed to number counting. And I realized the importance of it because every decision you make has an implication on your bottom line. And, you know, you can't run your business on the back of a fag packet or a beer mat, which is what we used to do when you started small, because you know monies were just little, they came in and they went out. But as you start growing business, your market grows. You know, you need to have a formal structure in there, and having a good accountant who is actually going to show you what is behind the numbers rather than just give you the numbers and throw them at you, and working together with you to say, right, look, the decisions you made has made an impact of X and Y, and what is the decisions you want to make that's going to improve your bottom line figure. So it's really crucial, and particularly now with the crisis that we're going through, all these forecasting and budgetings have just been thrown out into the big air, in the air. So now you need to get your head down together and say, right, at least try and salvage some sanity in the whole process and see how you can project yourself, and also find new and innovative ways of running your business, you know, because your traditional way of operating is non-existent, but you can find solutions to it because there's a huge demand for alternative services. And
Yes,
if
of
you've
course.
got the facilities and the know-how, this is an ideal opportunity to really excel in areas.
I think it's going to be a real challenge for so many businesses because when you look at larger organizations, they often seem to be a composite of disparate parts. So the accounts department runs different to, say, the manufacturing, which runs different to marketing, and there seems to be no joined up thinking. So certainly this will put a challenge into those companies.
It'll certainly do that because, you know, as a numeric person, the people making the decision, even on the shop floor, will need to know what's happening. What is the volume that we're shifting? What is the prospect moving forward? And, there are a lot of questions being asked that wouldn't have been asked before because, like you said, you have your little territory. You just get on with that part of the work and then move on. But often the case is a business coach will pull that together. I did a lot of work as a management consultant, and I used to pull departments together and get to talk to each other as well, because often it's a territorial thing. You're the accounts department, you're in this little glass house, nobody talks to you except when you haven't got paid. And then you've got the salespeople who will go out there and do a wonderful job and bring loads of order books, fill your order book up, but not talk to the production department to say, what capacity have you got? Can you fill in these?
Yes.
And that can be a dangerous place. And certainly I broke down those barriers, and particularly with management who make decisions. So I got them to talk. At least Monday morning, they'd start talk about what the facility they have, what workload they have, and then start following through and work together as a team. And certainly now is a crucial time. You need to talk to every aspect of your business, right down from the driver to the chief bottle washer.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because I think, particularly in the mid-sized to upper sized corporations, and that flow of communications from top down and bottom back up again, it gets broken on many strands throughout it.
It can, because we can be quite discriminatory about people. We judge other people. When we judge other people, we go beyond the ability that person has to offer. If anything, now with the COVID pressure that we're going through, we are realizing that what we used to call the HR department has got a very significant part to play. Human resources, there was more emphasis placed on resources, acquiring resources, getting the right people in, recruiting, managing them. But you forget the first letter, H, which is human. We are human beings. We're not widgets. We're not pieces of machinery. And there's a new school of thought now of how to get the best out of the humanness out of your resources, of your employees. They have a function there. Yeah, we talked earlier about if somebody's come up with an idea, because they're doing the work, they can see an alternative way of doing it better. But if you're rigid in your way and say, right, I'm an expert, this is the only way to do it, then you're throwing away creative ways of doing something more efficiently. And now's the time where people are working remotely. They haven't got the pressure of being physically in the same environment. So they are becoming more creative if you allow them to. When you engage with them, and communication is so important now with the lockdown, that it has to be done properly and managed well as well. Because otherwise you'll find that, there was a suspicion before this lockdown that if people work from home, they'll be just messing around and not being productive. But in reality, what we found is that the employers are forced to accept employees working from home. And most of them have also found that it's actually beneficial. A couple of benefits. You don't have to have them at your own premises, they're at their home. You don't have to pay rents and rates. You don't have to pay any travel expenses or catering facilities or anything like that. So when we come out of this, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of renting properties are going to be empty because people have suddenly realized it's efficient for employees to work from home.
Yeah, and I think it's a good lesson for people because
they have to build, and also
right.
certainly technology plays a big part. Technology used to be seen as something that was frowned upon or is habitual, but now it's becoming more productive. People are having to engage, and just like we're talking remotely, we have the technology in place. So if anything, anybody in technology industry, this is your ball game. You can improve on things, you can support people, and you've got, they may not be in one building, but they may be remote, but you can still help them in many respects. So
I think it takes a shift in mindset, because I can never understand people who engage employees, take them on, agree a salary, and then need to see them sitting at a desk in front of them to make sure they're working. If you didn't trust them, why are you hiring them on in the first place? I never understood that.
Yeah, I think now is the time where people are having to trust your people, and when you trust, you'll find that they'll give you the best. They're gone are the days when you used to have to breathe down somebody's neck to make sure that they're pulling the weight. You can't do that now. Physically, it's impossible. And as a result, when you do open up the communication, it's good for them to acknowledge the employees and the contribution they're making. This is something that was probably ignored, and it was just employers took it at face value that they're employed to do X, Y, and Z tasks. full stop. They fulfill it, 5 o'clock, they go, they get paid for it. Now you have to see the creative side of it, show the appreciation. Large companies used to have bonus schemes and acknowledgements and things and rewards that came with it, and they gave it to a lot of people. I certainly had a lovely silver pen that was given to me after 10 years service. And those were things like acknowledgement, but they were just peaceful tokens, pieces of token. Now you actually have to pick up the phone and say thank you for anything that you can acknowledge, just to make them feel good and feel valued. And that's more crucial now than it has ever been. If you want the loyalty of your employees now of the future, this is a time to build up that relationship.
Yeah, I think if we look at what we'd call traditional or in the past relationships between management and employees, it was a very transactional one. You come here, I give you money, you go home. Whereas now it's much more collaborative and partnership based, whereby if the communications is right within an organization, it becomes a journey for everybody to go on.
It is, and what you also find is if you have a group of, have a team, how do you manage your team? Because you're not physically present. They're all in their own homes. So it's important to keep a constant connection and have a structure built into the day, so they have something to follow. Where they had a structure in the life before, where they got up at a certain time, go into the car, go to work, and then when you're at work, you know what you're going to be doing. Now there's a very fine line between getting out of bed and getting to your desk.
Yes.
And it only takes split seconds. So now you need to make sure that your employees, your team have a regular structure, regular meeting, and communications, and open up from a group perspective as well as on a one-to-one basis. One-to-one has become more crucial now than it has ever been.
Yes, and I think it's been a great opportunity for those who have embraced technology like Zoom and meeting and all of those sort of things. They have the opportunity and the time to get out and start talking to people. And the people who get left behind are often the suppliers. Great chance to talk to them and see what they could help you with today.
It is the suppliers as well as your customers, because it's easy to forget them. You're expecting everything to be done remotely and online, but there's a human being at the other end. And certainly in my work, I reach out at least 4 or 5 times a day to call people I've had dealings with, my clients, my prospective clients. And the same thing goes in your family environment. You've got evenings and weekends. Just pick up the phone and say, hello, how are you? How are you feeling today? And just that little bit of a phone call, even if it's just 30 seconds, will make sure that that other person feels a lot better for themselves. And certainly in business, to keep the business going, functioning, it is imperative you pick up the phone. It's okay to do formally by emails and electronic means, but that is just a system-driven procedures. There's a human element to it. There are human beings who make decisions. And if you make an effort to pick up the phone, you build up a new relationship, and it could be a lasting relationship, because they'll remember you when all this dust is over from the COVID that we talked. You will be forgotten if you haven't maintained that communication.
Yeah, and I think it's important because you get to speak to people. The reason I mention suppliers is because normally they're the last down on the chain of communication and being brought into the whole melting pot of the business. And I'm a great believer in going out and meeting with suppliers because they're often the people who will give you new solutions to problems they didn't know you had.
Certainly, they're very important. I think what we're looking at is all throughout your business, maintaining that contact, working together really, because we're all in the same boat, going through the same issues, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety about where's my order going to come from, who's going to. But if you are a buyer, then certainly talk to your supplier. They'll get a sense of assurance that you haven't walked off the horizon.
Yes.
You are still there, you're talking. So when things pick up, you all move in tandem. Otherwise, there's going to be blockage on supply chain, and you'll have left people behind unaware that you're picking up your business. So it's good to maintain contact and exchange information, and explain to them what you are doing yourself. That will give them an impetus and inclination and confidence to do something for themselves. So when you start moving, they move with you. They can supply you. So it's important to maintain that link. And it's the same thing with your clients. Make sure that when they start moving, your whole supply chain moves with it. Otherwise, you're going to get caught short.
Yeah, it's also been an interesting time for leadership. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. I mean, we see it from a political side. I'm not going to draw you into any particular names, but virtually every sort of world leader has been brought onto the stage, and it's been interesting to see how they've responded to a challenge such as this.
Sorry, you were frozen for a moment, Alec.
Yeah, no, I'm saying in terms of leadership, the sort of COVID has brought so many world leaders onto a stage, and it's been interesting to see how they react. Have you any comment on it? You don't have to mention names or anything, but we've seen many different styles.
Certainly, it is. It's opened up the humanness of leadership. You know, the traditional business school leadership model have been cast aside for the moment. And what is bringing is new and creative leadership. The traditional ones are really struggling, and you know they're probably hammering on the old ways, justifying what they're doing and how they're doing. And behind that person face is somebody who's anxious about themselves. And you earlier you talk about as you go up the ladder, you know, you are scrutinized, your people are looking up at you, and you don't want to lose face. So we are seeing that on a global scale leadership where people are waffling, not really telling the truth, and they're backing up their decisions without any substance. There are, if you look carefully around the globe, there are some leadership who are caring and vigilant, and I think they are drawing the most respect compared to the others, because when all this is over long term, they will be remembered for how they made people feel. And leadership is about making people feeling. It's not just about what you say and do, it's how you make them feel. You know, people want to feel assured from your leader. That's why you look up to them. You look up to them for a sense of direction, a sense of assurance that everything will be fine, and lead by example, not sort of shying away from it and saying, you know, you do one thing, I'll do another. And you see that on a global stage. And
Yes.
certainly in business, you know, you have the employees' needs. You know, you have to address those. You know, they're anxious as much as you are. And it's a petrifying, you know, place to be in. You're finding that it's limiting their normal functioning abilities. And you need to be there to be supportive as a leader, even though you are going through yourself, but you also seek somebody else's support, like a coach or a mentor. And that'll help you to become more formidable and productive with your own staff and team. So certainly leadership has evolved now, and it'll come out in a different shape altogether of how the traditional modeling was. So there's a lot of thought and uh, structure available and different ideas. One of them is about listening. Leadership used to be about telling what to do, and you're not listening to the other person. The other person has as much feeling as you do. And when you listen, you'll find solutions that could benefit the whole business. And
Yes.
certainly, I think emotions are a great driver. And, you know, that can give you a sense of direction. It can open up creative ways of leading. So certainly, you know, are you listening to your employees, or are you just waiting for them to shut up so you can talk?
Well, I think that's a great message in which we'll finish the show.